Dems silent on Iran protest. That is the topic of today's op-ed live. So Fox News came out an hour ago about a report exactly about this situation in Iran. The Democratic congressional leaders and presidential candidates who were very critical about Trump attacking and getting rid of Soleimani, they're very sad about it somehow. I don't understand why, especially the Washington Post. They have been pretty much praising these Iranian terrorists. I just don't understand. But their criticism of President Trump for the escalation with Iran over the past 2 weeks largely have gone silent now that the protests on the streets of Tehran and beyond have turned their rage toward the regime and not the Trump White House. Because Iranians, they're angry. They're angry about the Iranian government taking down the Ukraine plane. And everybody in that plane died. Then that's why people are protesting there. And somehow, miraculously, the Democrats are all silent about this. Not all. There are a couple, who mentioned it, that they support the protesters. This is a good thing. People rising up to the Iranian dictatorship. Right? How come the Democrats are silent on this, but they always open their mouth criticizing President Trump when he gets rid of a dictator, that they say, oh, it's going to turn out to World War III. It didn't. It didn't. Right? So even as videos emerge online today that purportedly show Iranian police and security forces firing live ammunition to disperse protesters, so far among the 2020 Democratic candidates, presidential candidates, only former Vice President Joe Biden and Senator Amy Klobuchar have spoken out in support of the people. Only 2 people. Can you believe this? And the mainstream media, they're staying silent. They don't want to even show video clips of Iranian protesters kicking the picture of Qasem Soleimani because it doesn't fit their narrative. Their narrative is, oh, we got to protect these terrorists. That's pretty much what they are. They love the illegal immigrants. They don't care whether they're rapists or murderers. They don't care. They always side with them somehow, right? And they refuse to even use the term illegal immigrants. They just put, like for instance, LA Times, they just put the terminology immigrant, to try to portray that Trump is against all immigrants when his wife, Melania Trump, is she's also a foreigner, right? She wasn't born in the United States, right? Then how can you claim that Trump hates all immigrants? I do believe he hates all illegal immigrants probably, but not legal ones. But the mainstream media, they want to put Trump in that position that he hates all immigrants, right? The mainstream media wants to portray that Trump hates legal immigrants. That's what they're trying to do, because they refuse to put the term illegal, and they just use the word, undocumented. That's more politically correct for them, I guess. So anyway, the protesters have railed against the government following the shoot down of a passenger plane that the Iranian government initially denied involvement in, but they later admitted, right? Tehran later admitted they downed the jet in a misfire during attacks against United States bases in Iraq following Trump's takedown of top Iranian, the number 2 guy in Iran, General Qasem Soleimani. And the mainstream media, they're so sad about this. They're so sad about Soleimani. I heard this one anchor saying that America shouldn't have taken out the number 2 guy in Iran, whether he's a terrorist or not, that he's a number 2 guy, he's a general there. No, we had to take care of it. We had to take him out. He killed 603 United States soldiers. Sometimes I wonder whether the mainstream media or the Democrats are really on the United States side. It seems like they're always on the other side. Especially regarding climate change, they're on China. It seems like they're on Chinese side on this. They want to put all these restrictions, the Paris Accord. Donald Trump mentioned this. If you get in Paris Accord, America has to keep all the regulations immediately, but China doesn't have to abide by the law, abide by the rules until 2030. Okay? And I have yet to read those parts, those words from NYT or WAPO or CNN. They want to hide this from the Americans. And Americans are not stupid. They know that this is job killing. And I read Barron's last weekend on Saturday, even people from the far right side, they support Paris Accord. Of course, it fits their narrative. They want outsourcing. They love cheap labor. You know, there was this roundtable article with fund managers talking to each other, and one guy, I forgot his name. He's a very famous fund manager, I guess, and he was saying, "Oh, America has got to go back to Paris Accord, and we need TPP. Of course, it's good for you guys, you know, stock investors, but it's not good for the average Americans." They're pretty much saying, get rid of all the fat manufacturing jobs here and ship it away to China or Mexico or other countries. You know, that's why Americans, I believe, 7 out of 10 people, they don't believe the mainstream media anymore because they only show one side of the story. Okay? And they don't show the entire picture. You know, why Trump pulled out of the Paris Accord, why he pulled out from the job-killing TPP. Okay? So anyway, Trump has issued statements supporting the demonstrations, but his political opponents have been almost entirely silent after earlier criticizing the Soleimani strike and in some cases even faulting Trump for the fatal plane crash. Can you believe that? What has Trump got to do with anything regarding the plane crash? It was the Iranian behaving very irresponsibly, right? Okay. While America righteously took out Soleimani, they should have just, you know, held back rather than shoot missiles like crazy. And what happened? A fatal plane crash happened, right? And the demonstrators are blaming the Iranian regime right now. So journalist Yashar Ali, who is of Iranian descent has friends and family there, she called out, I think it's a she, yeah, called out the left for being silent when it comes to the protests in a viral Twitter thread about the situation. I've gone through some of the most active and prominent liberal Twitter accounts, and none of them mentioned the Iran protest today. That's what she tweeted yesterday. She goes on, these same people were actively tweeting about wanting to avoid war and attacking Trump for his decision. So Yashar, no, this whole thing is just a political game. You know, the Democrats would jump all over it if it's somehow disadvantageous to Trump or it can hurt him. But when their narrative takes a hit, they don't want to mention it. They want to pretend that it's not even happening at all. Okay. Ali continued claiming that Trump's critics have been using the situation in Iran to attack the president. In this context, oh, this is a he. Sorry about that. Yashar Ali is not a lady. He's a guy. Okay. In this context, Iranians are being used by certain people on the left as a tool to attack President Trump. But these same people do not seem to care to support the Iranians' right to protest. And Ali implied that because the protesters were criticizing their own leaders and not blaming President Trump, it wasn't worth it for liberals to talk about them. Now, I think this is big news. This is big news, you know, Iranian people protesting against the current Ayatollah regime. It's huge. It's huge. And it's somehow, you know, if you see the whole situation, the news narrative, it somehow backfires to the left, right? I mean, they wanted to portray that the Iranian people were all protesting against Trump when Trump got rid of Soleimani. But they don't show you the other side. There has been a former CIA agent, you know, Buck Sexton. He's now a commentator, a conservative commentator, and this is what he said. He said that the Iranians had to attend the funerals because they would knock on doors, and if you don't get out, you would get killed that moment. If you do not attend the funeral, that's how much of a, you know, dictatorship. That's how much of a stranglehold they have over their people there in Iran, okay? So Biden was the first 2020 Democrat to speak out in support of the protesters. This is what he said: none of us should be under any illusions about the Iranian regime. Well, I think Biden is showing his moderate side here, okay? I think many Democrats that I know of, they have been criticizing Biden for being far left, moving towards left and left since all the other nutcases, they've been going crazy, like Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren, everything free. So Biden somehow probably he felt the need to go a little bit left, but now he's showing his moderate side. And he said, none of us should be under any illusions about the Iranian regime, and the Iranian people, like all people everywhere, have the right to peaceful protest. The world should support them. Okay? But he also took a shot at Trump, of course. Reckless policies have needlessly endangered our interests in the Middle East. Well, other than him and Senator Klobuchar, the rest of the remaining Democratic 2020 presidential primary field, however, has been silent. And political reporter Ryan Lizza noticed the general silence from Democratic candidates on the matter, pointing out how some of them have been known for championing democracy in the past. Did they really champion democracy when they've been criticizing Trump back and forth, left and right, for ridiculous reasons? Talking about Russia all the time. Trump colluded with Russia. Trump is a Russia agent. He sold America to Russia and all that kind of crap. No, they have not been championing democracy. They have been championing conspiracy theories. They should have criticized Barack Obama more about why he wiretapped President Trump. Okay? Why Carter Page was wiretapped. Why did the FBI put spies there? And why did they manipulate an email? Okay? An FBI lawyer, he fabricated that Carter Page was not working for the CIA, while he actually did work for the CIA. Isn't this big news? Isn't this supposed to be on the front page of the New York Times? And the New York Times should have criticized Michael Horowitz, the Inspector General, for not making a sound judgment. Well, it's okay, because John Durham and John Huber, they're getting to the bottom of it. I believe many people will be investigated. I believe James Clapper, John Brennan, all those usual folks, they're going to be investigated. I believe that Barack Obama will probably have to answer some questions. I think John Durham is going to probably ask him some questions when, about the text messages between Peter Strzok and Lisa Page, about POTUS wants to know everything. He wants to be updated on everything, right? And they were talking about, there's a meeting about secret society. I don't understand why NYT and WAPO do not want to talk about those. When Peter Strzok was mentioning like secret society, I want to know what they're talking about. Are they taking orders from the secret society? It was just a one day. It just grabbed the headlines for just a day, I guess, even on Fox, and they want to pretend that this never happened. I don't know why. Is it because they're that powerful? Anyway, Joe Biden showed his moderate side, I guess. And other high-profile Democrats, they are silent. Nothing. Just crickets. And House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, she had an interview yesterday with ABC's George Stephanopoulos, the Clinton guy. And she responded by claiming that there were different reasons for the protests, including opposition to the United States. She wants to always turn this somehow against Trump, right? She always turns events against Trump. She somehow blames him. This is what she said. The protesters are protesting, as I understand, this brand of protesters about the fact that the plane went down and many students were on that plane, and these are largely students in the street. I don't know what she's talking about. And then Stephanopoulos, he confronted her and said, told her that the protesters were demonstrating against their government for lying to them, and that they were calling for death to Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. And this is what Pelosi replied. Well, whatever it is. Seems like she doesn't care about the Iranian rights, the human rights there. And she then went on to cite opposition to the United States, stating that Iranians had protested against their leadership before. And what about, let's go to the squad, the so-called squad, right? Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Rashida Tlaib, and Ayanna Pressley, Ilhan Omar. None of them, they're all silent too. They have been refraining from speaking about the protest. It's pretty sad, right? Okay, let's check out some news headlines and Twitter feeds. Okay, Ryan Fournier tweeted this. John Kerry says there was not a whiff of scandal during Obama's 8 years. Obama has been the most corrupt president in the United States, without a doubt. Look at all those scandals. Fast and Furious, Benghazi, IRS, Bergdahl, Solyndra, Clinton emails, cash to Iran, spying on Trump. Do I need to list more? You know, Solyndra being the solar power company that went bankrupt. I think Obama poured in $1.2 billion or more than that. There are so many scandals. Actually, Barack Obama has been the most scandalous president in the United States history. But the New York Times, Washington Post, CNN, these major, powerful news outlets refuse to cover these heavily. But I will give New York Times credit about Clinton emails. Yeah, they did break that story, but they didn't. They regretted it, I guess. Spying on Trump. They want to pretend that it never happened. Okay, that is why Americans are believing less and less of the mainstream media. They have lost their trust. Okay, let's move on to the next page. Donald Trump tweeted this. Wow, the wonderful Iranian protesters refused to step on or in any way denigrate our great American flag. It was put on the street in order for them to trample it, and they walked around it instead. Big progress. I guess the Iranians, they support what Trump did. I guess majority of Iranians are happy that Trump took out Soleimani, right? Let's move on. Dan Bongino tweeted this. This is a deeply troubled woman, talking about Nancy Pelosi, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi. This is a deeply troubled woman who has been relegated to trafficking in discredited conspiracy theories in order to try and save her tattered reputation, right? Conspiracy theories, probably about Trump-Russia collusion, Trump-Ukraine. That is also a conspiracy theory. The quid pro quo was done by Joe Biden. And probably Obama was there on top of that, right? Because Joe Biden was a point man of dealing with Ukraine issues, right? Let's move on to the next page. Ryan Fournier tweeted this. In just 1 week, CNN was forced to pay out millions for 2 settlements and had to fire 200 photographers. They are going down. Yeah, their ratings are tanking. Let's move on. Donald Trump tweeted this. To the leaders of Iran, do not kill your protesters. Thousands have already been killed or imprisoned by you, and the world is watching. More importantly, the United States is watching. Turn your internet back on and let reporters roam free. Stop the killing of your great Iranian people. Let's move on. Charlie Kirk tweeted this. If Nancy Pelosi intentionally withheld articles of impeachment to tie Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren up in an impeachment trial during the Iowa caucus. Yeah, this is a controversy that's coming out, that Nancy Pelosi intentionally she's withholding these articles of impeachment because she wants to interrupt Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren's campaign because they're socialists, right? And Nancy Pelosi, probably she supports Joe Biden. I would bet, right? So she's trying to interrupt their campaign. That's what Charlie Kirk is saying, right? During the Iowa caucus. Not just Charlie Kirk. There has been many commentators that has been mentioning this. And he continues, wouldn't that be an abuse of power to influence our elections? The exact thing that crazy Nancy has been accusing Trump of, right? I would think so, but somehow the mainstream media refused to cover that side of the story. Let's move on. Educating Liberals tweeted this. Iran can execute gay people, treat women as property, kill thousands of citizens for protesting, attack our embassy, fire missiles at us, kill 176 innocent people on a plane, use $150 billion from Obama to sponsor terrorism. Stupidly, Obama making such a stupid, like a spoiled brat, he gave $150 billion to Iran, right? And he acted like a spoiled brat about Trump becoming president. Remember, back in October of 2016, he said, no other country can somehow meddle with our elections. And a month later, after Trump winning the election, he acted like a spoiled brat and say, oh, somehow Russia, we got to investigate Russia. I mean, he did such, I supported Obama back in 2008 and 2012, but he has been involved in many heinous behaviors, I have to say, okay? Chant death to America, and idiots will still defend it. Let's move on to the next page. David J. Harris Jr. tweeted this, Democrats and MSM, mainstream media, General Soleimani was a revered hero. And that's a picture that you see, that's a 7-second video clip where an Iranian protester is kicking Soleimani's picture there, okay? That white sheet has Soleimani picture. Okay, let's move on to the next page. Trump tweeted this, Bernie Sanders volunteers are trashing Elizabeth's Pocahontas Warren. Everybody knows her campaign is dead and want her potential voters. Mini Mike B, I guess Michael Bloomberg he's talking about. Mini Mike B is also trying but getting tiny crowds which are all leaving fast. Yeah, Mike Bloomberg, he said he's going to probably spend up to $1 billion for his or somebody else's, Democrats' campaign, eventual Democratic presidential nominees' campaign. But, Michael Bloomberg, I don't think he has any charisma. His speeches are boring. So, therefore, I don't think he can win the nomination. But let's see. And Elizabeth is very angry at Bernie. Do I see a feud brewing? Because Elizabeth Warren has been criticizing Bernie's camp recently, so there might be a feud brewing, like what Trump said. Let's move on. Dan Bongino tweeted this, the media's disgraceful, abhorrent gaslighting designed exclusively to damage President Trump by backing the Iranian mullahs is certainly a new low for these embarrassing fake news specialists. Let's move on. You can't make this up. You can't make this up. David Chris, a highly controversial former DOJ official, was just appointed by the FISA court to oversee reforms to the FBI surveillance procedures. Can you believe that? You put an Obama guy there to fixing FBI surveillance procedures when it was the Obama administration, when it was Barack Obama directly involved in the wiretapping of President Trump. You do this? The swamp. Okay, let's move on. The Democrats and the fake news are trying to make terrorist Soleimani into a wonderful guy only because I did what should have been done for 20 years. Anything I do, whether it's economy, military, or anything else, will be scorned by the radical left. Do nothing, Democrats, of course. Let's move on. Representative Mark Meadows tweeted this. There need to be answers for why David Chris was picked to oversee FISA reforms. He's repeatedly downplayed blatant FISA abuse in the past and dismissed the damning IG report's findings. How can he fix a problem he does not even understand? Completely unacceptable choice. Let's move on. Charlie Kirk tweeted this. Facts. When Osama bin Laden was killed, the Senate unanimously passed a resolution 100-0 praising our troops for taking out a terrorist. Today, 0 Senate Democrats have supported an identical resolution to praise our troops for the killing of Soleimani. What changed? Let's move on. Trump tweeted this, 95% approval rating in the Republican Party, a record. 53% approval rating overall. Can we add 7 to 10% because of the Trump thing, meaning, I guess, the shy Trump supporters? Because the mainstream media attacking them, somehow that they're being racist, homophobes, Islamophobes. I don't think at this moment that there are many shy Trump supporters anymore. But probably you can add up to 7 to 10%, I guess, because if you think about the 2016 election, only 3 major pollsters were correct. Other than that, every other poll companies were dead wrong, right? It was the Investor Business Daily, I believe, and the Rasmussen and the LA Times Daily Tracking Poll. Okay, well, that's our show for today. Our show is not about left or right. It's about being right or wrong. To stay up to date with our latest videos, make sure to subscribe to this YouTube channel by clicking subscribe. Thanks for tuning in.